Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joar, and today is Friday, May 23rd, 2025. And the excellent David Cogen is joining me today. Hi, David. How you doing?
I'm good. It's been a long time since I've been on your podcast. I'm kind of excited.
I know. And you're doing it from your podcast studio. So this is exciting.
I am. Yeah, it's probably my first actual real podcast. And I'm so excited that it's you.
Thank you. I mean, it's great. And you've got a special plant behind you. For those of you watching on Patreon, I will make sure that the plant is slightly in the shot. Because
those of you not watching, hold on.
Oh.
Some ASMR for you.
Yeah, there you go. ASMR for the plant. It's lovely. Just so you know, those of you who are listening and go like, what do you mean video? Well, there's a video version on Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL. You get it in advance, a day in advance, and you get it every week for $5 a month. So just consider joining and helping me out that way. I saw you at Google I/O, and I have so many feelings about what we saw there. It was quite something, right?
Yeah, good and bad. But,
yes. And so I'm wondering how you feel about it, because I don't know where to start. There's AI, there's XR. Some of it is super cool. Some of it is left me with honestly a feeling of dread.
Yeah, which I think is kind of the de facto state nowadays when we talk about AI stuff to some degree, right? Because we can see a future where it replaces us in some way, right? Is why I think we're all kind of nervous about it. I don't know. So the VO thing, which is, if nobody knows, is the new version of their video, text to video generator, as well as the Imagen new version that's for text to image. And then they also have a music one, and they're doing all sorts of stuff. They now have native audio in the VO3, which is what I think we're all ugh. It's still very cringy though.
For me. Yeah.
It still didn't work very well.
It was definitely impressive. I was wow, we can do this now. But at the same time, I was you can get critical and go things are a little soft looking. And, and then the dialogue was very basic and very cliche.
Yeah, almost right, I was going to say.
And also, it felt like the pauses were a little bit off, or maybe overemphasized. I don't know. Yeah. I mean,
wasn't quite right. You could tell it was some sort of AI.
But here's the thing, right? And this is the thing I want us to all remember is that, a lot of the other generative AI tools we used in the early days were kind of crap too. This is going to exponentially improve. And so
yes, how
do we know that what we're watching? And the same thing as photos, right? How do we know this photo's real? This has definitely become a thing in the last 2 years. And now it's going to be, how do we know this? I mean, beyond deep fakes, which have been a thing, how do we know this video is real, right?
Right.
And
I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm a little less. Well, first off, I feel like we have to embrace this. This is going to happen regardless of what we do, right? We can't stop this.
No.
And so, yes, it's scary about what might happen in the future, but I'm also trying to see some of the utility out of these things. And there is a lot of use for me to use VO to supplement maybe animations in my video or, something else that I didn't get a shot of, or, I could see it. If it can do mundane things for me that would normally take me a really long time, that's what I want AI to do. And it seems like there's a lot of that in what they're showing. It's just the fear of eventually it will get good enough to XYZ, right? But I don't know. I got to use the Flow demo. I don't know if you got to do that.
I did not.
So the Flow is their video editing software now that Google has that kind of combines all of those image generating things and then kind of just makes a timeline out of it. And you can just, text, describe a video, then you can extend it, or you can cut it, and then you can say, okay, now the next prompt, and it'll use the last clip to continue. And I messed around with it for a while, and I did it, and I was kind of oh, this is kind of useful. I wouldn't make a whole movie in that or a video in that.
But you could storyboard something with that.
I could, not even just that. I could add some of the shots look good, some of them don't, right? As soon as people are involved, it starts to look a little weird.
At one point, everyone.
Yeah. Or one person separates into two at some point in one of the clips I did, and you're that's weird. But yeah, I could see it as it gets better. It could supplement some of the B-roll. If I want or drone shots would be great, right? I can legally make drone shots and not have to worry about
Worry
actually
about the
doing them.
legalities of it.
So
Yeah.
I think it feels more like it's like Photoshop, right? Like when Photoshop first came out, people were like, well, and it's not quite the same, obviously. Like this AI is exponentially different, but it's a tool now that I think as creatives we need to embrace,
I agree.
and the world will adjust in the same way that it did to Photoshop. Like where I was like,
Right.
oh, how can I tell what photos are real in Photoshop? Right? It's always been the thing, and you're like, to some degree you can't, but it exists, so you're kind of just like that must be photoshopped, and I assume that's how it'll go for the
I
rest.
think the dread for me is not so. I mean, like I think part of it is like, yeah, the fear of replacement. But I mean, more for you. You're more of a YouTube creator than I am.
Right.
For me, it's the whole notebook LM podcasting thing. That's
that'll
been
replace you.
Going on.
Right?
But at the same time, I listen to those and I'm like, again, they're super cliche. They're great. They're fun. They're good. They're entertaining.
They're a good way to
super
absorb
cliche.
data.
And what I think is going to be what I'm more worried about dread here is like once I can, and I think I can do this already. There are platforms that let me add words that I've never said because I want to edit something out, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I'm thinking eventually somebody could grab my entire collection this is episode 428. So 428 of these podcasts, right? But I mean, I have also a history before that of another podcast I attempted, and then an entire Engadget history of podcasts, which is hundreds. They could take all that, ingest it into the AI and say, make a Miriam podcast, make a Tank Girl podcast. And they could, because they would have my style and my mannerisms, and forget the video part, just the audio. So that's kind of the dread part, and then also the what's real, what's not real, and how do we use this as a tool to better ourselves, right? Like that's the other thing. How do we how do we evolve alongside the AI evolving? Like
Right.
and that's kind of the part where I'm like, I feel that learning curve seems insurmountable right now.
Yeah, but you know what? I think it probably did when Photoshop existed, right?
That's
like
true,
when
yeah.
Photoshop first came out, people, photographers were like, "What the hell? That's not photography. That's something else." But like, I think we do adapt eventually. My bigger concern is to your point, to some degree, is like how quickly it's accelerating.
That's the problem. Yeah,
That is the problem more so than anything else. And and then AI in general, and reaching a singularity and all those other crazy things that could possibly happen from all of this. I'm more concerned about those than I am concerned about it taking my job.
Well, that's true. The Terminator scenario is definitely real.
Yeah. The Terminator scenario, just like we all no longer have to do anything because AI can do it all for us. And now what the hell, like, I'm almost more scared of the Wall-E scenario. You know, if you saw that movie, like humans just live in pods that float around and we're, just everything is done for us by robots.
But unfortunately, greed is not looking like that's going to happen for most people. Greed is looking like most people are going to be dying on the streets, and that's what I'm worried about. That's the dread, I think.
Yeah,
because I'm going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I think most of our audience is going to be okay. But I think about the people who are already struggling. Yes. And I think that's the economics of it, I guess. But back to what. But back to what you're saying, I think for me, the other thing is, like, I look at coding, right? When I left the engineering coding world in 2010-ish or so it's about 15 years ago, I had a set of skills and I was really good at them and, whatever, right? Let me repeat that. There was a very loud truck going by.
Yeah, I don't even know what that was.
I had a set of skills, and I knew what I could do. And, I tried kind of like after Pebble, I tried to kind of get back into coding and, applied to some jobs. And I realized that just in like 3 or 4 years, I'd kind of lost a lot of skill. Not because I didn't know what I was doing, but more because the tools had evolved and I needed to adapt and the languages had evolved. And so, I wrote that off a little bit. But now I've played with some of those AI coding tools and I'm like, it can do stuff that I would literally take me 4 hours to do in 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Like I actually was playing with it yesterday for just random reasons. Same thing. It's like, and I know enough code, like a little bit here and there, right? Like I don't know a lot of the new languages. Like I usually do HTML, JavaScript, and PHP. But like so I can understand the syntax of what's happening. But it's such a huge head start, and then you can kind of go through it and go, and then you can tell it to like change things. and it'll just rewrite the code right there in front of you.
Yeah, and then, even
insane,
better, you can
actually.
in the old days when I was coding, most of the time I'd start with a code sample. Like, if the first time I did an iOS app, like this was in the early days of iOS, maybe 2 or 3 years into the App Store, maybe 2 years into the App Store, I was like, okay, let's take a sample. Apple supplied samples as part of Xcode and modify it. But now it's like you can just tell the AI, like, create a basic Hello World app, or even more than that, complicated than that. You can tell it, like, I want an app that does XYZ, and then it just does it. And then you have an app for your iPhone.
Yeah, Stack Overflow died immediately when this came out.
Exactly.
Because that's what as any coder will tell you, that's the way we all got some of our code, at least, right? It was like, just grabbed it from there, and now AI can do it for you.
That was Flow and VO3. We talked about these a little bit. AI mode is interesting, right? That's another
and also
feature.
Scary.
Well, yeah. Basically, it's if you have Google account right now and you go into Google search, you'll see it. It's right there. It's like the mother of all searches, right? Basically.
Yeah. Well, and you can tell this is the way that they're like Google search as we know it is. This is the first day of it dying.
Yeah,
right?
but it's also the logical. This actually makes me feel positive because here's the thing, like if we can kind of like get the hallucinations under control, right? And get this to work, I think this is a much more polished research tool than we had to do a lot of manual overhead searching when we did some searching. We both do it a lot because as journalists, we need to validate stuff. My biggest fear with this is that we need to trust the results. And right now, I'm still not sure I trust the results.
Yeah, it's my same problem. But
at the same time, knowing it's all out of Google searches, I feel like this might actually be okay. But you're right. It's, also it's the end of SEO, I think.
Yeah, well, I think SEO is going to shift. I've heard things like Google is prioritizing websites that use their own photos, that they're not using stock photos, right? So that way there's a personal touch. They're maybe even adjusting for tone, like something that sounds more narrative or more me and I than the robot would. Yeah. There's things like that happening. But to me, the bigger concern is what I've already been nervous about last I.O., and I literally asked one of the executives this, and they just gave me some non-answer. But it was, you're scraping the internet for this data. So you're scraping websites. And what's going to happen when all of those publications can't survive because they're no longer getting the traffic through Google because you give someone an answer right away? Yeah. Right? And so that, you're not going to have anything more to scrape. At some point, AI is just, it's reliant on this thing. So they have to figure that out. But they haven't yet.
They're kind of shooting themselves in the foot in a way long term, right?
Really, yeah. But but for them, it's all there's an AI race, and they don't care. But yes, at some point it'll come back to bite them. But in the meantime, we're going to watch more and more publishers die. You know, and more and even YouTubers that can even scrape our stuff and pull out information. So
and then VO can replace you.
Correct. Yep. Again, all of the very happy thoughts.
And that's what I'm saying. Don't worry, folks. If you're feeling bummed out, we're not trying to bum you out. We're just trying to have a conversation about how we felt there because it's important. Also, there's a ton of exciting stuff coming up with XR. So just stay tuned for that because I'm very gung-ho about it. Other thing that they showed was Project Astra, which is their kind of agentic, agent AI thing. That felt very positive to me, to be honest with you. Yeah. Again, hallucinating is aside and the whole issues about AI aside, I'm very gung-ho about the idea of having my phone, my laptop, my assistant, what used to be Google Assistant, now Gemini, and if you're on iPhone, Siri, whatever, be the person, quote unquote, that I can kind of bounce ideas off to. And simple stuff, not the stuff that really cerebrally occupies my brain, but more can you, kind of like what they showed, can you make a phone call to this flower shop to find out when they're open and if I can pick up some flowers this afternoon and get them to put me aside some blah, blah, blah and pay for it? That, oh my God, that is the holy grail for me.
I agree. I think finally what we were promised back with Google Home and, all the other AI assistants in the beginning, this is actually an AI assistant. You can almost visualize, executive's assistant that goes and gets the laundry and does the things. And, there's to some degree, that's, it's Jarvis. We all want Jarvis. And
Yes.
this feels more close to that than ever before.
Exactly.
And that is kind of cool. I also like they showed a demo where it bought someone plane tickets, right?
Yeah.
And like booked a hotel, and like it did all of that for them within, you just had to say it, and that was it, that's cool. Save me time. Again, do the things I don't want to do. Let me do the creative stuff. Do all of the mundane things would be great.
Exactly. And that's kind of how I felt that was, again, if you're an executive assistant, you have a set of skills that is probably not replaced by AI right away, because good executive assistants are quite valuable because they know things that the AI just wouldn't be able to figure out.
They're also physically there. They can
but for the average person who's just trying to get through their day and get as many, like I'm thinking moms, or dads, whatever, people who have children to deal with and have jobs on top of that, and they have to take care of their homes on top of that. They're going to benefit from these things because it's going to simplify their workflow, not work, but life flow. Yeah. So much more, right?
Yeah. And I myself, it's also like people who started a coffee shop while also running a full-time YouTube channel.
Well, I was just going to say.
And are working too much. I could see how it could help me for sure if I trusted it, again, being the key thing. But
right. And that's my fear right now. It's like, if I give you my United login and you can now book a flight for me, no problem. That's fine. But can you do it right?
Yeah.
Can you pick the best flights knowing what I like? Like, there's no information in United that tells you that, other than, I prefer window seat or whatever it might be. But like, there are all these other parameters, that I think I'd have to literally kind of handhold them through one kind of thing. Or
yes, I was going to say, I think you have to say it once, and then the idea being it could remember it. Yeah.
But hey, you mentioned your coffee shop. Do people know you have a coffee shop? Should they know you have a coffee shop?
Yeah, they should know.
Tell us about your coffee shop.
Okay. I'm in the back of it. Ad. Now, here we go. No, I'm in the back of it. I'm in the podcast booth. But it's a coffee shop I opened in Brooklyn about 9 months ago. So losing money every day, just as expected, which is great. But I enjoy it a lot. I try to not tell, like, nobody in the coffee shop that comes in knows that I'm a YouTuber, but and I want to keep it that way because I just want to like do a good coffee shop. And I just started roasting as well. So we're going to start roasting our own coffee and
congrats,
selling that online.
I know that was a big step forward for you.
Oh yeah, huge. And it's hard, to be honest. Like, it's super nerdy. Like, I'll show you one day. But like, it's a super nerdy process, and it's difficult, but it's enjoyable because I'm that type of person that wants to.
Yeah, and you can make it data-driven these days.
It's very
because the tools are very cool.
Yeah.
It's called Coffee Check, and if you think about it, the coffee emoji and the check emoji, that's kind of your logo.
Yep.
And
trademarked it.
I've been there, and it's phenomenal. If you are in Brooklyn, in Greenpoint, go there.
Appreciate it. Or buy some beans online.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Support David by going to his store online. Coffee Check. What's the URL?
Coffeecheck.nyc.
Ooh, I didn't know it's not right. Well, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Very cool.
The baristas and I
when you open another coffee check in San Francisco next, obviously, in my neighborhood, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
It's going to be coffeecheck.sfo then.
It would have to be, yeah. I guess so. Okay. Or, yeah, I have no plans to open a second one of these. It's a lot.
It's a lot. So, back to I/O. I'm trying to think of what else there was. Oh, Notebook LM has a mobile app now, which is great. Yep, so you can create podcasts on your phone, which I think is cool. And then, we got a whole bunch of other things like Gemini 2.5's text-to-speech, can change languages on the fly. I don't know. There's so much. There's so much stuff, right?
The live translations in Hangouts now is live for Spanish at least, and then it's going to be, which was kind of interesting. It like overdubs you.
Oh, there's a crazy Google AI Ultra subscription that costs $250 a month.
Yeah,
which is like, what?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's a lot.
Yep. I mean, I could see like a business doing that though. If
if
you're yeah, that's the only person who hopefully will do that.
I mean, you get storage with it too, so it could be a good deal. Yeah, that is true. Right?
It's like
you get
30 terabytes.
You get all of the Google stuff in addition to all the Gemini Ultra stuff.
I'd have to look up how much the 30 terabytes are by themselves, really.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, it's really cool. Google Meet's getting real-time translation. Gemini Live that we've already experienced on our Pixels. If you have a Pixel 9a, I think some of us in our reviews were able to experience this before. And I believe I wrote about it on hothardware.com, my review. Basically, you can now show your camera live and tell Gemini to describe what it sees, which for people that are sight impaired is incredibly awesome. Yep. You can also tell it to describe what's on your screen live. So like basically screen capture live. And stuff like that I think is really helpful. Yeah. Like, because sometimes you're looking at something like, what?
Yeah. So I've also used it. I've even used it in the roastery, but I've used it in other places just to like test what it does. And I think that multimodality, like that ability to use video or photos or whatever in conjunction with a question is super, like, way more useful. I literally like pointed it at a menu and I was like, tell me the ABV of all of these beers because I want a lighter beer. And it would literally go, here you go. And it would let me know. And I don't have to even tell it which are beers. It just could tell that there was a headline that said beers and it just scanned below that. I've also done it in the roastery where I'm like trying to figure out time and temperatures and doing math for me. And it just like spits it all out. It's that was the first step where I was like, oh, this is kind of useful. So yeah. I like it.
The cool thing here is that they are also working on something called Synth ID, which basically watermarks anything that's AI generated, and it lets you check that it was AI generated. And I think that's going to be a very critical thing. But also, speaking of Gemini Live, Google Search Live is another thing they showed, which is basically the ability to have a conversation with your search engine.
Yeah. How is that different than Gemini?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Because I'm like,
I don't understand that product. I'm like, isn't this
I think it's
the
right in
thing?
search, though. That's kind of
it's just putting Gemini Live somewhere else.
Correct. Yeah,
right, that makes sense.
I think that's more or less all the stuff that they did that was AI, kind of Gemini, kind of like related. Oh, there was also the announcement, but that's going to be in the XR stuff. We're going to talk. Xreal has an announcement, which is exciting. Related to what they showed. So let's talk about that because then we can move on to other things. Android XR, we saw. So I wasn't super excited by Project Muhan. Did you get a demo when they did the thing in December?
No, I didn't. And I didn't get to use it here either. No.
Yeah, neither did I. But I'm kind of done with VR or whatever you want to call them. The things that look like ski goggles or like,
thing that's transport you somewhere else.
Like, that's great. Those of you who love that, I'm not arguing with you about it. I think you enjoy. I know that I finally got a chance to use Vision Pro at a Mercedes demo in Germany, like in February, where we got to basically sit in a virtual car wearing, Vision Pro, and holy moly, this is the first time I felt like the quality was good enough for me to be like, this is the eye
solid. Tracking in there is really
like
good.
Just the quality of the image and the lack of tiredness. It was a very short time. The thing is heavy, and I can understand how some people have issues with that. I'm fiddling with a stick of chapstick. Woohoo! But I mean, the point is, like, I'm not, for me, the holy grail is the glasses. For me, the holy grail is like Google Glass version 2.0. And that's really what we got to see there.
Yes.
Like, they did show Muhan again, and I'm sure that the Samsung headset will be fantastic. It'll be lighter and probably cheaper than what Apple's got. And I think that's progress. But I don't care about that because I get all sweaty, and then you need a prescription lens for that. I mean, it's a pain, and that the prescription lens doesn't work with other devices. Whereas, you buy a pair of glasses, you keep it 3 years, it's worth paying that prescription. And I think with the XR glasses, the kind of stuff they showed us, they have a display that looks like normal glasses. Yeah. I think that you're going to be replacing them every 3 or 4 years anyway because of the technology evolving, maybe even less than that. And so then you need prescriptions anyway for most of us. So I'm okay, if the price of the frames is only like 100 or 200 more than the price of a normal frame, and I can add this prescription to it. It's about the same price I would pay for a fancy pair of frames, right? Normally.
Yeah, right.
I mean, so that's kind of why I'm excited that they're doing this and that they're partnering with Gentle Monster and Warby Parker.
Yes.
because that's going to help. It's going to matter for people to be fashionable when they're doing their XR. And I think that's going to kind of get over the hurdle for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing is like, not even just fashionable, which I think Google is smart. They covered their bases, right? Like Gentle Monster, super expensive brand, very out there. Like there'll probably be feathers on that thing. And then Warby Parker, which is very basic and simple. Those are all my glasses are Warby Parker. So I'm particularly excited for that one. But the fact that they look like glasses, like the guy came on stage even wearing the reference devices, and you didn't know until he was like, by the way, I've been using these as a teleprompter the entire time, which is cool. That's the big leap. It's like I use my Ray-Bans, my Meta Ray-Bans, all the time. But I wish it had all of these other features. This is like the Meta Ray-Ban or the Meta Ray-Bans plus what's the other one that had like the screen that everybody liked a lot? I'll think of it later. But anyway, it's like merging those two together and creating a better product. It's just a better version of what we've had so far, and I'm personally stoked for it. I got to use it in a demo even, and it was a little buggy, of course, but it was still like way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I feel like the best analogy for this is this is Glass version 2.0, but without all the problems, because people
and a lot more features.
Well, first of all, Meta Ray-Bans have really kind of democratized the idea of having a camera on your, without being creepy. We're past that stage now.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, and also we've created, technology that turns on a light. So, all that stuff is happening.
Yep.
But now add a display to that and don't make the glasses bulky and ugly. And, like Xreal is getting there, but they're not quite there. It sticks out a little much and stuff.
They don't
and
look
that's
like
why I'm
OnePluses.
excited about this announcement, because they announced that they have a product coming out for this. Xreal is working on Project Aura, which is what these glasses are. And, it looks very, very sexy what they have to show. They're much more sexy than their existing stuff. So I'm excited about that because I have a pair of Xreal, the Ultras, the top of the line ones, and they're a great display. You connect them to a USB-C source and you can use them. And they have cameras on them as well. And with their Beam, what's it called, device, it's like an Android device that Xreal sells that plugs basically between your phone and your glasses and acts as a battery pack, but also lets you creates this space where, like Vision Pro does, where the windows are stuck to the world. Whereas if you just wear the Xreals as a display, as you move around, the display moves with you, right? So it virtualizes the stuff. And then on top of that, you can even use this Beam device, since it's an Android device, separately and install Netflix on it and watch Netflix. That way you don't use your phone's battery and you don't have to have two devices in your hands, basically. It's cool. It's been out for a little while. That came out about a year ago, I think now.
Yeah.
But Xreal does some cool stuff. So I'm actually excited to see, it's not just this partnership with these brands of glasses. Xreal has a lot of expertise. So I'm kind of curious to see if they bring something unique to the table.
Yeah, they've been around for a while.
Yeah, the whole Google Glass 2.0, I love Google Glass. And I understand why it went the way it did, because people were freaked out. And it was also the way people were using it was very disrespectful towards others. Yeah. And then it kind of snowballed into this, kind of hate fest. But I think with this, we might actually get what we've wanted. And I think they have two different kinds. They're going to have some with the display on one side, some with the display on both eyes, and we might even get stereo vision out of that, some kind of 3D effect.
Yeah. They also said optional screen, so there might be some
and
that
some
don't
of them
have
won't exactly. And then the fact that you can kind of look down if you're in Google Maps and actually see the map draw on the ground briefly.
Yeah, that was cool.
Stuff like that. I mean, this is, to me, this and the AI agent, and since of course this is running Gemini Live, you could potentially have that whole, talking to you. It's like sometimes I'm walking down the street and somebody's got earbuds in and I don't notice, and they're talking to themselves, and I'm still like, what is going on? And I'm like, oh, earbuds, right? Because
oh, you're on a phone call.
Sometimes it's really obvious they're on phone calls. They're very agitated. They're moving their hands. They're loud, and you're on a phone call. But sometimes it's you're just they're muttering, and you're like, Uh,
Yeah.
you're on a call. Okay.
Mhm. It's like when Bluetooth first
I think
came
we're gonna
out.
have that kind of like plus with the
Yeah.
glasses.
Oh yeah. It'll become commonplace at some point, but yeah, it's gonna be weird.
But yeah,
first.
that's kind of my take on I/O in general. I mean, I think obviously there's all kinds of developer stuff. They announced that Gemini is coming to Android Automotive, which they had a Volvo EX90 there, which is the EV, which I got to drive. It's a great EV, great sound system in particular, and more importantly, it's one of the best implementations. Volvo and Polestar are one of the best implementations of Android Automotive, which is like the native Android in the infotainment system part, and so that's gaining Gemini, which I'm very excited about because I'm often in cars right now using Android Auto, for example, or whatever, or sometimes even Automotive, which is built in, and I'm like I start talking to it like I talk to Gemini on my phone. And I realize, oh no, we can't do that because it's just the old assistant, right? So I have to context switch. It's like when I'm using my Pixel Watch right now, it doesn't have Gemini, it's just the assistant, and so of course it's
that's dumb.
Well, I think it's coming soon, but that disconnect between platforms is kind of where we're at, right? I mean, obviously things are improving.
At least they're trying to fix it, right?
Yeah. So this is cool to me. And yeah, I mean, do you have any other feelings about I/O before we move on to the rest of the stuff?
No. I think I am excited for those glasses, I will say.
It's cool.
I really wanted them when I was walking out of the demo.
Yeah,
I was
me
like,
too.
I want to play with these longer because this is kind of neat. And I can kind of see finally, I think now, they kind of open my eyes to like how AR glasses should work.
Agreed.
So that's kind of cool. I'm just excited about it. That's it. But I think that's it. Done.
Yeah, great.
Moving on.
So I have this phone here, the Galaxy S25 Edge, finally arrived, my review unit. You have one too. You left it at home.
I do,
but
just
whatever.
not with me. Yeah.
Here's the thing is, I'm going to be literally, it's been less than 24 hours. I'm going to give you my first impressions because wow. I am actually very impressed with this phone. It's not the thinness so much. I mean, that's part of it because this is not as thin as as I've said in previous podcasts, Moto Z, the first Moto Mods phone, 5.2 millimeters,
Right.
Oppo R5 was like 4.85 millimeters. This is like a decade ago. And then there was a Vivo X5 just around the same time, since they're kind of sister brands, that was 4.75 millimeters.
Right.
The problem is
back when they had a lot less things in them.
Yeah, and these phones didn't last a day on a battery. But so far, the only thing I've really been able to test is the camera very much. I'm actually going to go out after this podcast and do some camera tests. But so far, I'm very impressed. I think it'll last a day of my normal use, which is probably heavier than average. Now, it's still true that they should have put a silicon carbon battery in there. I had this whole argument with one of the Google execs at I/O about that. And he's like, we're not convinced that silicon carbon is the future because we're talking about Pixel. Because, well, he's pointed out the drawbacks that, longevity is an issue compared to regular lithium ions. And also they tend to, if they're not managed properly, they will grow, they will expand faster and more likely to expand than regular lithium ion. But that's not, I've had silicon carbon phones now for 3 years and I've used them extensively. And if the charging is managed properly, the charge cycles are still in the thousands and I haven't seen any swelling. Now, I know it's Samsung. They still have all that trauma from Note 7.
Yeah, they're probably just scared to try it.
They still need to spend more time with their therapist. But if they could put silicon carbon in this, I think this is a viable form factor. But the thing that I cannot stress more than any other thing here is how it's kind of a game changer when you hold the phone that thin and that light. I don't know if you felt that way too. At first I was like, come on.
It definitely feels more luxurious than I thought it was going to be. And even Samsung is trying to, at least they told me in the room, that they're trying to position it as such, right? It's the price that's the problem.
Well, yeah, $1,100 is, and for a phone with 2 cameras, it doesn't have a telephoto, and a battery that's only 3,900 milliamp hour. But
that's the problem. It's a cool phone if it was cheaper.
A day into it, I'm in that honeymoon phase of going every time I use it, it feels delightful, the form factor in my hand.
It does.
And,
I agree.
And
with
I
that.
look at it and I think to myself, there is a wireless charging coil in here. There is there's no 3 cameras and the other battery is smaller, but they haven't compromised anything else. There's a Snapdragon 8 Elite in here. It feels snappy. The display is absolutely gorgeous.
But it's the price. And I don't know if there's a tariff thing going on with that, and like maybe they meant to launch it
I agree
cheaper,
with you,
but
the price is an issue. But most
because
people,
the S25
most
is
people
cheaper,
don't buy
has more cameras.
They buy subsidized. It doesn't matter to them.
This is fair. I agree with that. I
mean,
actually
you
said
and
that
I
in another
care
video.
about that, of course, and I agree with you. But I feel like I'm not saying this is the phone for everyone. I'm just saying that you got to experience it. And it might be with phone for some people. And I think in the same way as the original Razr was a bit of a fashion thing, I can see this becoming a fashion thing.
I was about to say, I think that they're just copying Motorola and Razr, and they're trying to see, is there a market for this? Because Motorola seems to be doing it.
And I think when Apple does it with the Air, it's going to be really a hit. Like, I really think that, who knows what they're going to do with a single camera. Like, I still have this delusion that Apple's going to put an ultra wide only in there. And it's going to be like a 200 megapixel ultra wide, and they're going to be able to zoom in to basically get off the 1x equivalent, the 2x equivalent, the 4x equivalent that way by doing some clever software trickery. But knowing Apple and how conservative they are and evolutionary they are, the only thing that thing's going to bring to the table is being thinner than the Samsung, and it's not going to have silicon carbide battery. It's not going to have some kind of crazy camera that does ultra wides. But I would like to dream. I'd like to dream that Apple's going to innovate for reals once. I shouldn't say once, because they do innovate. It's just more like they take stuff that we take for granted in Android land and actually bring it to, Apple land, iOS, whatever, their ecosystem. And they do polish it. The experience is generally more refined.
That's something they're very good at, is UI, UX, and making things more intuitive.
So I'm very excited about that Air. But this right now has me more smitten than I expected, and I'm kind of dumbfounded by why. Like, I hold it, and I'm like, this phone, there's something about it. There is something about it.
No, I agree. It's the feel. Which is a good indication of a luxury product, period, right? Like, it's someone buys a nicer car, or they buy a nicer handbag, not because it's necessarily has better specs, it's because it feels better. There's something like unspoken about it, right?
And it's titanium, and it does feel really solid. Like,
it's very solid, very light.
You can't can't twist it.
Did you try to bend it immediately when you got it though? Because I did. Because it feels like the flip.
But here, for those of you watching on Patreon right now, look at the evenness of the bezels. I know we have this on the other S25s, but like, this is particularly stunning here because they're so thin and so perfectly even.
Yeah.
And then you go like this, and you're like, oh wow. And then I love this camera bump. I think it's super cool. Like this two-tiered.
Doesn't bother me. Yeah.
Plus, they send me the proper color. They send me the bluish color, so I'm very happy about that.
Yes, that is the proper color. It's the one I got.
It's the best color to have.
It is the best color.
And I want to thank, by the way, AT&T for supplying this phone. Thanks, guys. By the way, this phone, the S25 Edge, is available from AT&T for pre-order, so until May 30th. So go get it. I think as early tech adopters and tech savvy folks, right? Like, we upgrade pretty often. So they have this program called Next Up Anytime, which lets you upgrade your phone every 3 times per year, which I think is a lot. Like, Dave, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's
Would you upgrade your phone? Like, if you were no mob, like a person who doesn't get review units.
If I didn't do this for a living,
would you upgrade
I change
3
every
times
week
a year?
I mean, I don't know, maybe. I definitely do it twice because I'm a nerd, and there's usually at least like 2 releases. Like 2 big ones that I'd be interested in. I don't know, maybe.
I mean, giving every 6 months seems like a pretty fair, but this is 3 times a year, so every 4 months, folks.
That's great.
And then, there is a link in the show notes to the actual pre-order page for AT&T. And again, I want to thank them for providing the device because that was very helpful. Yeah, so I think, the takeaway for me is like, okay, this is cool. You haven't played with yours very much yet, but what's your general thought on thin phones? Like, do you think, I kind of feel like 5 years from now, all the phones are going to be like that?
Yeah, that's probably true. I think it also is like more stuff gets offloaded to the cloud. That'll also be a part of that too, of like it not needing as much this and that and needing more of this.
I think that once silicon carbon batteries are coming in and people they start getting 2-day battery life out of a phone that's 5 millimeters and a bit, I think then it'll be like, okay, like, why would we make thick, bulky phones anymore?
Yeah, correct.
Right, especially once we start adding a third camera. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. At some point, somebody's going to make one.
Totally.
In fact, some of those smaller compact phones, like less than 6.7 inch, like 6.3 inch, 6.1 inch phones that are out there, like the OnePlus 13S, That's coming to India very soon. By the way, there's a news item, so check out the link in the show notes. It's coming June 5th, folks. This is a big deal. This is the flagship compact phone from OnePlus. And, I was wrong on a previous podcast. I thought that thing had the two cameras were the same as this, an ultra-wide and a regular. But no, it's a telephoto and a regular. Which is a very odd choice on
it
the
is
part
an odd
of
choice.
OnePlus to kind of kill the ultra-wide.
Yeah, maybe a good thing.
Because we know that hasn't gone very well for Moto on the Razr. So
no. Is it at least a 2X? I mean, sorry, 3X.
I think I have to check the specs, but it might just be a 2X.
I'm curious. Because that was the problem with Motorola, it was a telephoto and it was 2.
It didn't matter. Yeah,
and it was like, we could just zoom in.
Well, I'm going to look it up right now because,
go for it. I'm curious.
Might as well. Chaos has already happened multiple times on this show.
Everything went perfectly as far as anyone watching this and listening is concerned because you'll edit all the chaos out.
That's right. I will make the chaos go away. It is a 2X. Wah, wah, wah.
Womp, womp, womp. Yep, not useful.
Yeah. So
but whatever, cheap.
I think this thin phone or compact phone or combining the two would be kind of crazy with silicon carbon added to the equation is exciting. And I want more of it. Now that I've tasted it, I'm like, I'm ready for Oppo to do this or OnePlus to do this or Xiaomi to do this because they'll do
Apple
it better.
Coming soon.
Well, Apple will do their own thing, which I'm very excited about. I'm definitely looking forward to them hopefully sending me a device since I did an iPhone 16e review for the first time. That was pretty cool. I enjoyed that phone a lot.
I'm still editing mine.
But stay tuned, folks. You've heard it exclusively here on the podcast. David's coming to you with an iPhone 16e review.
And a 9.
All right. Speaking of Apple, we got a bunch of news. A Worldwide Developer Conference has been announced. So that's their big event of the summer. And that's coming on the 9th of June. So very soon, next week, I guess, or something. The week after next. Something like that.
Yep. And they announced it on the first day of I.O. because
of course they did.
That's how petty everybody is.
Oh, God. I know, right? But also, speaking of the iPhone Air rumors, 17 Air, there is some specs that have leaked. Again, take these with a grain of salt. These are leaks, so who knows what's going on here exactly. But the battery size and the weight potentially have leaked. And so we're looking at a weight of 145 grams, undercutting this phone here, which is 163 grams. So yeah, that's lighter. That's also going to be, we know it's 5.5, so it's just going to be a tiny little bit thinner than this. But the battery is only 2,800 milliamp hours, apparently.
Ouch.
But here's the thing. Remember, iPhones use a smaller battery to start with. So this sounds ouch to us in Android land, but it might.
What? Well, what's the battery of a 16 Pro or a 16 or a...
Since we're looking up things,
I'm
going to tell you right now. Let's look at the 16e is a bad example because it is a bit of a battery champion. So let's look at iPhone 16. Let's do the base model.
Trying to find it too now.
And okay,
you're gonna beat me.
We have 3,561 milliamp hour.
Okay.
So
still kind of low.
Still
compared
to
Android land, to your point.
Yes. So I think
so that's not too much lower.
Yeah, adjust your and then the 16e. Let me look that up real quick. iPhone 16e is. By the way, this is thanks to GSM Arena for being the database of all things. It's bigger. It's 4,000 milliamp hours. So
which is another reason why it's
big
better
for an iPhone.
Yeah. Okay, that makes me less concerned. You're right. Yeah,
I mean, it's still concerning. It's still pretty much that tells me it's not silicon carbon. That tells me it's kind of in the same vein as Samsung. My previous guest last week, we were talking about this, and I think they made a good point. They're probably not putting silicon carbon in there, besides the trauma and the Samsungness of it and the cost, is because they test the waters, right? They want to see if this sticks before they spend the R&D to put a silicon carbon battery, get it tested.
Yeah.
And right now, I mean, again, the exec at Google said that's not a big problem, but I feel like it might still be a problem that the testing is only really happening in China for these. It's TUV, the German testing, and then of course there's CE and for European Union, and then there's what else the other one, UL in the US. All these testing labs, they exist and they're going to be able to test these batteries if they want to. But I think in China they have a much more streamlined process for that, which is why we're not really seeing these silicon carbon batteries on a Samsung phone or an Apple phone because it does require some expenditures to get it tested. Is my feeling. The exec's like, nah, it's not a huge deal. But I'm like, I don't know.
But I think in general, Samsung is testing the waters with this phone, period.
Exactly.
Like that's they almost said as much without saying it.
They did that with the Note. They did that with the Galaxy camera. They did that.
At least
with
they take risks.
The folding
try
phones,
something.
and they were the first, and they weren't always great, right? Like the original Note was about the only thing they nailed, I think, of all of those.
Like as an original, like as a first.
Galaxy camera was super dope, but I don't think that, considering like computational photography and what we can do today, at the time it was cool, but like, it wasn't gonna fly. The folding phones, their first one was pretty rough. Right, but then they quickly improved. Right,
so now we're at whatever number 6,
6th gen.
Yeah, it's
Seven's
solid.
Coming up.
It is a solid phone.
I mean, both the Flip and the Fold are pretty damn solid.
Yeah,
if a bit boring.
They're very refined compared to that first one.
Yeah. All right. So the other bit of news we have is that OpenAI acquired this company called I/O, nothing to do with Google I/O. It's a small I and small O together as a word. This is a company that Johnny Ive created as a spin-off of his Love From design studio that he owns. When he left Apple, he created Love From, which is like a design studio that gets hired by a bunch of companies to design, devices, industrial design, UI design, UX design, that kind of stuff. And so for like almost 6 billion or whatever, so 6.5 or whatever. I mean, it's some ridiculous amount.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And there's some, I'll link to the TechCrunch story here. There's a photo of the two of them being very, very adorable.
Yeah, I saw it.
I thought it was a gay wedding announcement, honestly, when I first saw it. And I'm like, whoa, okay.
Kind of the vibe.
Or maybe the child, like announcing some new child or some new, or like Chris Davies said, a new orchid.
A new orchid.
Join the family, because that would be kind of fitting. But look, besides making fun of these lovely people, I'm a little, my concern is not so much what Johnny Ive is doing. I'm sure it's going to be great. But is it actually going to be useful and practical? Because we've seen, Rabbit R1 and Humane AI Pin. Now, Rabbit, we got to give them credit. They're still going and they're still evolving the thing. Have they really delivered what they promised? It's arguable. But Humane completely disintegrated and got completely absorbed by the Borg, aka HP in this case. And I'm like, and the hype was, and this is the other problem I have with this. There's so much, like, it's so hypey. Did you get a chance to watch that video, that 10-minute video? Oh my God, you got to watch it. Go to the OpenAI after this. Go to the OpenAI, all of you, I'll put the links right now. Go to the OpenAI YouTube channel and watch the 10 minutes of self-congratulation that the two of them are doing to each other in a coffee shop in South Park, or actually North Beach, in San Francisco. And I got these Humane vibes all over again, but less pretentious, but just as kind of like, it's got that tech douche bro vibe that I don't like. Like, why do we have to contaminate? There's enough greed going on. Like, let's be more real. Like, I'm very excited to see a hardware product from OpenAI, because now they've acquired I/O, so this was the hardware products they're working on. But and I believe that ChatGPT and other OpenAI techs are pretty interesting, in the same way as Gemini is pretty interesting. But this whole like valuation money around it, that's like, you're creating value that doesn't exist yet. Like, it's thin air and it's speculative, and it bothers me because it feels like a pyramid scheme. It feels like crypto again. It feels like and that's what bothers me. It's not that it's Johnny Ive and Sam Altman and OpenAI. It's the money around it, the hype around it, and that feels so humane again to me. Yeah, so,
agreed. And I do think a lot of that money is to buy Johnny Ive, right?
Well, of course, I get that.
But still, it does feel weird. But also, like, someone said something to me, and correct me if this is wrong, also edit it out. Something to do with, like, OpenAI is technically a nonprofit. Is that correct?
Well, I thought they used to be, and then they stopped being a nonprofit.
Oh, okay. Someone was telling me that they are a nonprofit, but I/O doesn't have to be. And so this is them becoming a profit.
Because I can't remember if it went in one way or the other way. So I'm actually asking Gemini right now.
Oh, do it. Let me know. So cool. So I'll Google it while you do that, and I'll let you know if it's right.
Okay. Hang on a second. I love how we're doing this. This is crazy.
Great.
All right, Google Gemini.
You can cut all this out.
I should have just pulled out my phone. That would have been easier.
It would have been faster, yeah. Mine's recording, so I can't do that.
All right, here we go. I've just asked. All right. OpenAI has a unique and somewhat complex corporate structure. It was founded as a nonprofit, so I was right. And a nonprofit entity still oversees and controls its operations. However, to attract the significant capital needed for developing advanced AI, OpenAI also established a for-profit subsidiary.
OpenAI LP.
Correct. There you go.
Okay, I take it back. Take that out.
Okay, I'll just put an edit.
You can do whatever you want.
Anyway, yeah, so I think I'm excited about this, honestly, but I feel like I want less hubris because I'm concerned about what we saw with Humane. And, and for as much as rabbits start out like pretty crazy with what they promised and a little overhyped, they did deliver a product. It wasn't quite polished, but I have one and I get the software updates every freaking week or month. There's something. And do I use it? Absolutely not. I'm sorry to say that if those of you who are involved with Rabbit, like, hi, right? These people I know, like, I don't use it because I have my phone with Gemini and it's great. But I understand what you're trying to do and you didn't get absorbed by the Borg and you're still a little independent. And I like that. I want to support the underdog.
Sure. And like,
so
and
I
think,
bought your product.
Yeah, and I did too. And I have not used it in a very, very long time.
You should plug it in. It'll pull about 1 million hours worth of
updates.
So just leave it plugged in for about 5 days and you'll be okay.
Cool. But also, like, I think the one big feature that Rabbit had that was like, oh, this is our differentiator and why we're so cool is that teach mode. Right, which I think they released, but it's not quite what they said it was going to be. And then Google just at I/O, to bring it back to that, just showed how Gemini is going to do that.
Yeah.
So like they were promoting, I feel like they're promoting a feature, not a product. Like I literally, like when I first went to the launch of Rabbit, I was like, how long before just Google or Apple just makes this a software feature in your phone, which could easily happen. Rabbit even runs Android, I think, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm surprised they're still here. I mean, look, it's cool. Again, all the reasons you said. Independent, it's a very pretty product. It's cool, but I just, use your phone.
Yeah, use your phone. Nothing is making a pair of headphones. I don't know if you heard this last week because you're a busy man running a coffee shop, but they are partnering with KEF, K-E-F, the big, very old, very famous British speaker company manufacturer.
I was going to say, I know that name, but I don't know why.
And
that's
guess what? A week later, here we are they actually admitted in one of the Nothing YouTube channel videos that they're making headphones over the
ear.
Like
nice.
over the ear, like probably wireless noise canceling headphones. They're going to be better than AirPods Max and cost less is what they're saying.
I mean, it's a bold statement. But
look, it's quite possible.
Yeah,
because
it is.
They've shown that they can do that with earbuds. The Nothing ear, the latest ones, and the Ear A are two of my go-tos. I love them dearly. They're some of the best, and they undercut the competition by at least $50 to $100 in terms of performance.
But I will say, knowing Carl Pei,
he
did the same thing at OnePlus. He subsidizes the costs of the phone to gain market share,
and
then he slowly raises the prices. So, is it going to be cheaper than Apple? Absolutely. Guaranteed they'll do that, and it'll be on par, if not better. Also, Apple, AirPods Max came out how long ago?
They just got updated with USB-C, don't you know?
Yeah, totally new product.
All right, the next bit of news I already told you about, it's the OnePlus 13S coming to India on June 5th. Just as a point of reference, for those of you who are a little confused by this, OnePlus announced a 13T, capital T, in China recently, and it's an identical phone to the 13S, small s, that's coming to India. Right now, there's no word on whether these phones are coming to other markets. Unlikely, though, that they'll ever come to the US, but it might come to the markets where the Nord is sold. So I don't know. The point is that there is this really cool compact flagship, full-on flagship, except for the lack of ultra-wide. Silicon carbon battery, the whole shebang, so it's coming. So if you're in India, you get all the good stuff. I'm jealous, is basically what it comes down to. I know a lot of my audience is in India. You guys have fun with that because I'm jealous. I think you guys are winning on this one. You get all the cool phones. Xiaomi came out with a new phone called the Xiaomi 15S. The 15S is essentially the same as the 15 Pro, except that it doesn't have a Snapdragon 8 Elite in it. It has their own chip that they made over the last few years called this weird name, Xring 01, not 01.
Xring 01.
The stats on that, the benchmarks that have been leaking through the benchmark databases show that it's about 7% slower than 8 Elite. So still pretty damn good. Now, this is China only, of course, and but
agreements
this
with
tells
Qualcomm
me
won't
one
let them
thing.
do it in the US.
We're going to see more and more Chinese phones, at least, with their own chips and their own OSs, like we've seen Harmony OS Next on Huawei phones, which no longer works with Google Apps.
Right.
At all.
Right.
So I think this is kind of where China's going, because they want to wean themselves away from both the processors and the software from the American IPs, right? And
Absolutely.
That way they stay clean and they can continue using TSMC to manufacture 3 nanometers. This is 3 nanometers. So I think this is cool. I think that, I would love to get my hands on this to try it out, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
I'd be interested to try it too, but yeah, all these companies are going to make their own silicon. Everybody is now very weary of doing business across certain countries. And now, China's trying to remove its reliance, to your point, on the Western world.
I do like the gold accents
inevitable.
on that phone. Why don't they put
I
more
haven't seen the
gold
phone.
accents on? It's linked on that link I sent, the GSM Arena. At the very top, if you click on it, you'll see there's a phone has gold accents. I like it.
Gold accent.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
So stay tuned on more of these Chinese chipsets, Chinese software, because I'm kind of fascinated. And maybe I can get my hands on some of it. Honor 400 series is out. That's been kind of ongoing for a few weeks now. We've been hearing about it. The 400 series is kind of like a mid-range phone for them. It goes below the Magic series, the top of the line ones. What's cool about this phone is it's got a 200 megapixel main camera. It looks pretty competitive. It's in China. It has the version slightly different there. It has a 7,000 milliamp hour battery in China, which is again silicon carbon madness, right?
That's cool.
Yeah. And there's more phones coming with. I can't talk about them. I'm under embargo, but there's more phones coming with very large batteries from manufacturers that are selling in some markets outside of China. So stay tuned. So anyway, this is a mid-ranger. The difference between the main and the Pro is that the main has a perfectly flat screen and the slab sides and doesn't have a telephoto. The Pro has kind of a quad curved display. It's not really curved. It's just the glass at the edge is curved like the OnePlus 13. And it has 3 cameras. Other than that, they're very similar in terms of performance, in terms of specs. They have a 5,300 milliamp hour battery for the global models. And then I'm trying to figure out the chipset right now. And Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 for the 400. Oh. And what's interesting actually is that the one in China has the new 7 Gen 4 chip, which just came out from Qualcomm.
Wow.
So it's interesting that they really made a completely different version for China. And I don't know why they would do that.
But again, I think there's licensing agreements that
for sure
are dictated
by the
by
way,
country.
The Pro has an 8 Gen 3, so last year's flagship chip. There you go. So there you go. If you like Honor, you can get yourself a hand. I like the Honor phones, but I can't get my hands on them. And it's
I'm
really
looking
hard
at it right now, actually, and I will just say that one thing I like about them is that the cameras make a face on both models.
It's true. It's a cool camera pod. I wish I could get them as review units. The last thing is there is a Huawei folding laptop called the MateBook Fold. It's only 7mm thick when unfolded. It's got an 18-inch OLED screen when open and a 13-inch when folded. And it's basically the same as we've seen from like HP, Lenovo, Asus, but so much thinner and so much sexier. And it doesn't have an Intel chip. It has an ARM chip, some kind of custom chip from Huawei, and it runs Harmony OS. It doesn't run Windows. But if there's this video that I saw, and I'll try to post it in the show notes, that blew my mind because that thing looks so slick in use that, this is something I want. I want this, but I want this with Windows on ARM, and I want a Snapdragon X Elite in there. That's it. Make it happen. Somebody. Lenovo, Asus, come on.
Yeah, somebody do it. Maybe this will push those companies to do that.
You can beat, because this is basically like, somebody commented, and I think the Verge article says that it's like, this looks like exactly what a iPad MacBook, merger would look like if Apple made it. It's got that sexy hardware that you'd think, like it's got a built-in kickstand so that you can prop it either as an 18-inch screen or like, as a tall 18, like anyway, it's got all the form factor combination that we saw with the existing either dual screen or folding laptops. And on top of that, it comes with like a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, trackpad integrated thing that can detach. And anyway, it's all, you gotta look at it. It's great. I love it. I'm smitten.
If only it was running the right operating system.
Well, yeah. And then the other problem is that,
and was available here in this country.
It's like basically this entire show is about the coolest laptop in the world, the coolest XR glasses in the world, and the coolest AI in the world that we can't have yet.
Yeah, that checks out.
That's basically it. We can kind of have
this was super useful for everybody.
I know. You're welcome. I mean, you can kind of have some of that AI. Obviously, Google's rolling it out. The
you can pay that $250 a month, and you can get it right now.
Oh, you can get it right now. The XR glasses are coming, and this laptop you can buy right now in China. And in fact, I think Niraj is going to fly out there. He told me already. He's like, I'm just going to go pay for it.
Of course he is.
Because he would.
He would.
Yeah, so that's essentially the news that we have for this week. But I'm honestly most intrigued here by this. What's this OpenAI IO acquisition going to deliver in terms of hardware? And then this nothing pair of headphones has gotten me super excited. If I can get myself a OnePlus 13S reviewing it, I will. And then the other two, the Xiaomi and the Huawei, like they're China only, so that's slim chance of that. I'll live vicariously through Benson. And then the Honor series, one day I'll get an Honor phone to review again. But right now that's hard to get around. So
and I think the XR glasses are my favorite thing. I'm excited for that. I'm willing to bet that's what IO and ChatGPT are working on. Or sorry, OpenAI and IO.
You think so?
I think that's the most natural form factor right now is that.
It's a pendant that you wrap around your neck.
God, I hope it's not a pendant.
It has a camera, no display, microphone.
Fish will love it.
Oh, you said that.
It looks like a Star Trek.
You said that in such a derogatory way.
Yeah, correct. He knows.
He knows.
His Star Trek vibes that overrule his logical thinking.
Yeah, I'm worried that they're not going to be glasses.
If they were glasses, it would make total sense. I could see that happening. I could see that being a success. They could literally just do the same thing that what we just saw at Google I/O, right? And they could just have ChatGPT in it instead of something else, and it could be sleeker and whatever. The biggest problem I have with the devices that are voice only right now is that you're talking to them in public, and especially if they're not connected to earbuds, people can hear the answers. It's like it's already bad enough when we're on the public transit and somebody's taking a FaceTime call, like, please, people, wear headphones. Yeah, I do the same.
Do not watch your TikTok videos for an hour on end on the
I almost considered carrying around around wired headphones that I can just give out to people.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's just rude.
It is rude.
Like, come on. Anyway, I'm
just
old.
I'm old too. But no, I don't know. You're going to have that same problem with the pendant, obviously. And it's just also going to look terrible. So like, and draw more attention to itself as opposed to the glasses, right? So I don't know. I hope it's not a pendant. Maybe it'll be a pendant.
Oh, it could be a brooch. Humane.
A brooch.
I don't know. I don't want to sound jaded. I'm genuinely excited about some of the stuff we saw at I/O. I really am. Like some of the AI stuff I feel like AI is finally getting to the point where it might be getting really useful and more polished. We're kind of getting past that tipping point of like,
the experimentation
I don't know
point.
about this. And then the XR glasses, 100%. And then, thin phones again. I am surprised that thin phones could become a thing.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they just, we'll see what happens with Samsung literally is putting this one into the world just to see if that's possible.
Yeah. I think this is a good way to wrap up. I want to quickly tell the audience that for the last 3 shows, I've been putting affiliate links in the show notes. And I'm letting you know in case you haven't noticed yet, because some of those devices we're talking about right now are available through the affiliate links. If you can support me through these affiliate links, consider looking at them. And David, you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, all your endeavors? beyond the
Yeah.
coffee shop, and you can
Yeah.
throw the
Yeah.
coffee shop again in there if you want.
I mean, yeah, I'd like to. I enjoy the coffee shop a lot, and I would appreciate your support. So would the baristas. But at Coffee Check NYC on basically everything, and then coffeecheck.nyc is the website where you can order stuff, and you can find me doing tech reviews and real world tests where I run around outside while testing phones or laptops or any other piece of technology at TheUnlockr.
and don't
and it's-
forget pool robots. Your last video was
Yes.
amazing.
Thank you. I never thought I'd be doing a pool robot, but I did a pool robot. You gotta switch things up sometimes. But yeah, the Unlocker, the unlock the letter R, because I started 14 years ago when it was cool not to have an E, because Flickr had just come
Tank
out.
girl without the vowels.
There. Oh yeah. Oh, we're on the same page.
So yeah, go check out Dave's stuff. You know where to find me, folks. I'm a Tanker, like I said, TNKGR. I'll drop all the vowels. That's my handle pretty much everywhere. I'm mostly active on Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram, but you'll find me everywhere. So please talk with David and I and comment on social if you want. If you're new here, subscribe to the podcast. mobiletechpodcast.com is the URL. You'll find all the shows there, like as a web page, and you can listen to them if you want, and there's all links in there. But better yet, subscribe in your app, whether you're on Spotify or YouTube Music or Apple Podcasts or wherever you might be, you can subscribe. It's there. You can also use the RSS link that's in the website to subscribe. So do that. And then youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast, a little extra bonus video content like unboxings and hands-on, like my most recent video is on the razors. Check that out. You know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, all that good stuff. And then the Patreon I mentioned a couple of times. If you want to really support me, patreon.com/TNKGRL. That's like basically like my handle. And you get, it's very simple. There's a $5 tier for a video every week in advance, about 12 to 48 hours in advance, with sometimes extra content. I'll probably leave a lot of the silly things we did in there today.
Great.
And don't worry, not all of them, but you get something extra, and you get to see us on video handled devices and whatever. So I think it's pretty cool, and that's just $5 a month every week. So consider that, and then you can pay less and get less access, but still support me. So I'd love that. Check it out. Patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And David, thank you so much for being on this insane show.
Yeah, sorry it was so insane, mostly because of me. In fact, probably entirely because of me.
No,
but it was
tested
fun.
out your studio. That's all that matters.
I've learned a lot. Thank
Yay.
you. But this was a pleasure. As always, I enjoy being on this with you.
Same
I'm glad
here.
I could make some time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And we'll have you on again at some point. And folks,
for sure.
next week we'll have another show, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.